let's take a look at an animator-friendly approach to rigging the fingers. So in the previous level, we've learned that we could always work with custom parameters to control the fingers. The only downside with this is, if we had to create more parameters for each finger, well then this becomes a long list of parameters we have to dig through until we find the one that we need. So instead what we could do is create, let's say, controls for each root. That way it's very easy to just go in, grab that control and reorient each finger. And then we can go ahead and tie custom parameters to those controls to drive the ends of those fingers. So let's go ahead and set this up. What we'll do is go ahead and grab each root. And then we'll go ahead and press Control Page Down to grab the entire hierarchy. And now we can Alt right click and use Freeze Transform to disconnect the transforms from our bend parameter. Now we no longer need this bend parameter on our armed control. Let's go ahead and press Alt 1. From here we'll choose Edit Delete. Let's go ahead and find the bend parameter. We'll choose Delete and apply changes. Great. Okay, so next we're ready to go in and create our controls. We could always work with this box control. So with it selected, we'll press Control V, make this a copy, and let's go ahead and have this aligned to the thumb's root. So I'll use Alt A to align it to the thumb. Again, we're making sure position and orientation are all checked. Let's go ahead and choose OK. Alright, great. So from here, we're going to want to go to our subobject level to bring this shape down. So let's go ahead and select all of our points. We'll grab our scale tool. We'll bring down the size. Alright. So make sure it's easy to select. Let's go ahead and press F3 to just double check and make sure. Okay, cool. So next, let's go ahead and clone this to the other two fingers. Let's go ahead and press Control V. Make this a copy. And again, we'll use Alt A to align this time to our index finger, which is okay. We might want to bring down the size a little bit more. So let's go back to our vertex of object. Go ahead and grab our points. Start to kind of scale this down. And again, I'll press F3 just to make sure that this is still easy to select. Okay, cool. So now we'll go ahead and do this again. Again, I'll press Control V. Once this is copied, we'll now go ahead and Alt A align it to the pinky. We shouldn't need to resize it. I think the size is just fine. Next, if you'd like, you could always go ahead and get rid of the attribute holder, or you can go ahead and rename it if you decide to work with it again. So since we're taking the approach of adding custom parameters to each of these controls to control the ends of each finger, well, we might just go ahead and right-click and choose Rename. And instead of calling this Finger Controls, we could always call this Extra Controls. Alright, beautiful. So now we'll go to the next. Again, we'll right-click and choose Rename, and that's going to be renamed to Extra Controls. And let's do the same thing for the thumb. Alright. Alright, so once we've done this, let's go ahead and make sure that each of these controls will be linked over to our wrist. Alright, so with all of them selected, we'll go ahead and grab our link tool, and we're linking over to our wrist bone. That way, when we grab our arm control and we start to kind of pull this, you'll see that the finger controls will never separate as the arm control separates. Alright, cool. So once we've managed to do this, we'll then want to go ahead and freeze the transforms on these objects. So let's go ahead and Alt right click and use Freeze Transform. Beautiful. Alright, so there we have it. Our control objects are in place. It's now time to tie our fingers to these controls. Now we've already made sure that we've aligned these controls to these finger bones. So watch this. When we grab our finger bone and we apply an orientation constraint, we'll notice that there's no shifting at all. So we've created a very clean constraint then. And if we need to, we can always grab our control, right-click, or Alt-right-click that is, and use Transform to 0 to bring the control back. Very nice. Let's go ahead and set up orientation constraints for the other roots. All right, so with the index selected, we'll choose the orientation constraint. There it is. And we'll tie that to the control object. Let's now do that for our thumb control. We'll go ahead and grab our thumb bone and apply our orientation constraint. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and test this out. So there's our thumb control. There is the control for our index finger. Excellent. All right, so now it's time to go ahead and set up custom parameters. And then we'll want those tied to the bend axis of each bone that remains. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and set up those custom parameters now. And in the following lesson, we'll finish up our finger rig. So to get this started, since we already have that attribute holder, that helps us to save some time. We can now press Alt-1 to access our parameter editor. And let's simply call this end, so we know that we're controlling the end of this finger. All right, so again, with the pinky control selected, we're going to name this parameter end. We're going to give it a range of -360 and +360, so animators have a lot of room. Then we'll go ahead and choose Add. Let's now grab the next control and do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and name this End. And take a look, our from and to range is already set, so that saves us some time. Let's go ahead and now choose Add. And there it is. Now for the thumb, you can see that we have this midsection end and end section. So let's go ahead and grab that control. And the first parameter we create will be named Mid. We'll choose Add. The next will be named End. Beautiful. All right, so this is a good stopping point. In the next lesson, we will finish our finger rig.